Welcome back into the Arrowhead Pride Rapid Reaction Show. I am Steven Serda, joined as always by my guy, Rocky Magaña. Kramer Sanson in the background helping us keep this thing moving. The Kansas City Chiefs improved to 7-2 with a 21-14 win over the Miami Dolphins in Germany. Rocky, there's a lot to say about this game. First half, maybe one of the most impressive halves of football we've seen from this Kansas City Chiefs team all year, especially the defense, followed by an incredibly frustrating second half. But holy hell, man, whatever. They hold on. Tua Tagovailoa gives them a break at the end of the game, 4th and 10, fumbles the snap, which leads to a sack. Game over. Chiefs win 21-14. We'll get into everything about this game, Rocky, but I mean, holding this Miami Dolphins team to 14 points is incredibly impressive. Chiefs get a win. They escape Germany. They head into their bye at 7-2 before maybe the biggest matchup of the entire NFL season against the Philadelphia Eagles on Monday Night Football after their bye week. So it's a massive, massive win for the Chiefs.
I mean, this was the game where the Chiefs offense essentially had 1.5 successful drives, and the rest of the time it was up to the defense to kind of bottle one of the best offenses in the NFL and one of the most dynamic playmakers in the NFL, and Tyreek Hill. And Tyreek Hill, before this game, said he's going to get 250 yards receiving against his old team. And the defense stepped up, and they answered the call on this one. And Tyreek, I haven't seen the final box scores, but it's nowhere near 250 yards. They kept Tyreek Hill out of the end zone. He didn't have the grand homecoming that he thought he was going to have against the Chiefs defense. That being said, after all the talk that the offense had after they're falling flat against the Broncos last week about they needed to step up, and it was enough talk, and that they needed to circle the wagons, the offense needed to play well, they came out firing on that first drive, and they looked great. And then after that, it was a whole lot of nothing for the most part. The wide receivers still are not good enough. You got something out of Rashee Rice, and he's decent, but MVS and Justin Watson can continue to be a liability. I thought Sky Moore looked better than he has all year, but he still didn't give you a lot. And the running game was almost non-existent in this contest, I thought. And I thought that if the Chiefs defense didn't play out of their minds, and if Brian Cook didn't have the 2 most clutch plays of the Chiefs season this year, the Chiefs don't walk out of Frankfurt with a victory after this one. It was a great win. I mean, take nothing away, the Dolphins are a tough squad and one of the best offenses out there. And I know that the Dolphins defense is just now getting healthy, and they've been banged up all year. But you got to score more than 14 points against the Dolphins offense. If you have Patrick Mahomes as your quarterback, you got to score more than 14 points. This victory was 100% due to the Chiefs defense stepping up and playing lights out. I think you're muted.
Oh, I was muted.
Hey, there we are.
So I agree with all of that, Rocky, but Tyreek Hill finished this game 8 receptions, 62 yards. So nowhere close to the work that he promised to give the Kansas City Chiefs secondary today. But no, it was still just it was a game of halves, and incredibly impressive first half from the Kansas City Chiefs. Like I went into that first half break like really floating with how the Chiefs played. And, obviously in the first half, you still want to get more from the offense, but the defense continues to prove. And all week long, I was listening to podcasts, reading coverage and articles, and trying to dissect this Miami Dolphins offense that has been such a problem for the entire NFL. And and a lot of what I read this week was like they can exploit this Chiefs defense. They can beat this Chiefs defense. And the Chiefs defense just quietly continues to be one of the most undercovered units in the NFL. And it was up and down for the defense in the second half, just the same as it was offensively. Like this Chiefs team, similar to Chiefs teams in the past, likes to shoot themselves in the foot for some reason, but they get a win. And at the end of the day, that's all that matters. This Chiefs defense is a bona fide top 5 unit in the NFL, and their secondary was incredible today. So I want to get into everything from this game. I want to discuss every aspect of this that we can, but I'm going to start with the defense, and then we'll get into the offense, because I'm not really looking forward to talking about the offense. But I do want to talk about the defense because I think they were incredibly impressive. And man, I think somebody who's gonna probably not get as much hype as some of the other guys in this game because there were so many Chiefs defenders who were impressive today, and that's Willie Gay. I think Willie Gay is really gonna go undercovered in this performance because he comes into this game super questionable. Like, we weren't sure that he was even gonna play. We already know that they're down Nick Bolton, and Drew Tranquill has been spectacular. But Willie Gay brings a level of athleticism to that linebacker room that they really needed in a matchup like this. He winds up being able to go, forces a fumble, has a couple other just like big plays, had a huge 6-yard loss play that was all Willie Gay. Like, he had an incredible impact in this game. And overall, their defense just continues to show that they truly are one of the best units in the NFL, and they need to start being respected and covered like that.
Oh, 100%. I mean, Willie Gay had some huge plays on the game. And then also Trent McDuffie comes out with 10 sacks and that huge game turning fumble, at the end of the first half. I mean, this defense looked awesome. I mean, especially in the first half, they were dominant. They shut down Tyreek Hill. The Dolphins couldn't get anything going. They were putting enough pressure on Tua Tagovailoa to keep him uncomfortable. I mean, really, when you look at this, it was really kind of like the Brian Cook and Trent McDuffie game. The only thing that you're questioning coming out of this game is, where was Chris Jones? Chris Jones was a non-factor in this game, with the exception of one extremely frustrating bow-headed move where he had a late hit on an offensive tackle on 3rd and 20 that gave him a first down. This is like back-to-back weeks that we've seen nothing out of Chris Jones, and for a guy who's supposed to be a leader on this defense, like, you would like to see a little bit more out of the guy who's supposed to be a game wrecker. That being said, the other 10 guys on the defense are playing lights out. And I know there's an aspect that Chris Jones is fighting double teams. If Chris Jones is doing this, Chris Jones is doing that. I get all that. But he's also wanting $30 million a year to be the guy who can beat a double team. And right now, he's not beating a double team.
So with the Chris Jones stuff, and before we get into that, because I do want to talk about him and kind of what he's been like after, he came back from his holdout and immediately was just ripping off sack game. And now he has been really quiet because we know he's getting double and triple teamed along the interior of that defensive line. But obviously the difference in this game, though, and why I was so impressed early on in the game, I think we've talked a ton about this Chiefs defensive line and their pass rush, and that's not even what I was impressed with today. What I was impressed with is this Chiefs secondary. That group was phenomenal today. And you saw it early in the game, and I talked about it all week long at Arrowhead Pride. Like, this Dolphins offense is so weird, and they're so explosive, and they score so many points, and they're so good and so challenging to stop because of all the speed. But they're really a timing offense. They're quick throws. They're get the ball out of Tua's hands, keep him in the pocket. We don't want Tua to have to hang in the pocket or get outside the pocket because that's not his game. We want him to get rid of the ball because he's an accurate passer. He's a timing thrower. And those guys are just so fast at those timing throws. Instead of them being like 6-yard slants, they're 15-yard throws down the middle of the field because they're so explosive. And Tua was having to hang on to the ball for a long time, especially in the first half, because the Chiefs secondary was just absolutely clamping down those Dolphins wide receivers. And credit to Steve Spagnuolo. I think he's going to get under discussed in this performance. The Chiefs defense was incredibly impressive overall. And I do want to get to the pass rush, but I just wanted to acknowledge how fantastic the secondary was today. You mentioned Trent McDuffie, man. Trent McDuffie is elite. L'Jarius Sneed is absolutely elite. The Chiefs got to find a way to keep Sneed this offseason, because I want to see Trent McDuffie and L'Jarius Sneed continue to grow in that secondary, because they are both special players. But we saw their depth in the secondary across the board today, and I thought everybody played well.
I mean, Trent McDuffie played at an all-pro level today. There was one play he got beat on to that touchdown to Cedric Wilson, but I mean, that's a wash. I mean, that's going to happen sometimes. But besides that, 10 tackles on the game, 8 solo. I mean, he was all over the place. I mean, Trent McDuffie was an absolute stud. Brian Cook had the 2 most clutch plays in the entire game. I mean, Justin Reed came up with a huge hit, on one play. L'Jarius Sneed was all over the place, came back after going into concussion protocol. Mike Edwards had that clutch pitch. I mean, this Chiefs secondary bottled up the most explosive offense in the NFL. Like, I don't want to undersell that at all. Whatever criticisms we have of the offense, whatever criticisms we might have of, what star players had made a bonehead move, whatever. The Chiefs secondary, Jalen Watson with a sack, for goodness sakes. The Chiefs secondary played lights out. Chiefs secondary played like the best secondary in the NFL today. Like, there was nothing more you could ask for out of this Chiefs secondary. They were rallying to the ball. They corralled Tyreek Hill. Every single time Jalen Watson or Tyreek Hill touched the ball, you had 3 or 4 guys immediately crowding to the ball. Like, they were gang tackling. This secondary is playing as good, or if not better, than any other secondary in the NFL right now. The Chiefs have the best secondary in the NFL, in my opinion.
Yeah, and Trent McDuffie, obviously, that play just before the half, which was the deciding play that you guys just saw if you're watching us on the live stream, just incredibly poetic in a sense that he forces that fumble on Tyreek Hill. Mike Edwards scoops it up, pitches it back to Brian Cook. They return it for a touchdown. And, I think I talked about it on Show and BK this week. And one of the things that I was going to be really frustrated about if the Chiefs lost this game to the Miami Dolphins was this thing that we are going to talk about next week with the offense. And, the Chiefs desperately wish they had Tyreek Hill now, as if they didn't win a Super Bowl last year without him, because we're NFL media is so reactionary to what is happening right in front of them and not acknowledging things that have happened in the past. Like, this Chiefs team's already won a Super Bowl without Tyreek Hill. So I don't think that they regret it for 1 second that Tyreek Hill is no longer on the team. But it was incredible to see Trent McDuffie, the guy that they acquired because of those draft picks that they got for Tyreek Hill, that they were able to move up for and draft him in the first round of the NFL draft last year. Like, Trent McDuffie makes that play and says, like, yeah, they got me now. I'm fine. I'm pretty good at this game too. So that was an incredible moment for the Chiefs defense. And I just continued to be impressed by Steve Spagnuolo. And I think, like, what was even more impressive today, and we talk about how quick Tua wants to get rid of the ball, and like, and how he has looked against the blitz specifically this season and getting rid of the ball so quick, and those weapons being so explosive. He had time today, and he still couldn't accomplish very much in the passing game at all. And then when he didn't have time and he was actually getting rid of the ball, the Chiefs were holding up, and Spags was still bringing blitzes. Like, because that's been the big thing with the Dolphins. It's like, don't blitz them. They're gonna carve up the blitz. And Steve Spagnuolo is like, I don't give a damn. Like, we're sending blitzes because I have faith that when I dial up a blitz, it's gonna get home. And they did it multiple times today, and they were successful at it multiple times. Like, Steve Spagnuolo isn't gonna get enough credit because of Andy Reid, because of Patrick Mahomes, because the Chiefs are supposed to be this offensive powerhouse, even though it's not what they are at all this season. But this defense continues to go undercovered, and Steve Spagnuolo has been incredible this season.
100%, he's been incredible this season, and he's doing it with guys other than like the usual suspects that you would expect. Like you would expect Chris Jones to get his right, and Justin Reed to have a good game, because those are the 2 big contracts on the defense this year. But I mean, let's look at it. Like, Jalen Watson had a sack today. Leo Chenal had another sack today. Leo Chenal has turned into a legitimate pass rusher. Turk Wharton had a sack today. Like, the Chiefs are getting contributions from everybody on the defense at all 3 levels. I mean, if you look at the Chiefs defense right now, where's the weak link on the front 4? Where's the weak link in the linebackers? Where's the weak link in the secondary? There isn't. You look at all 3 levels, and they have playmakers at all 3 levels of the defense. Mike Edwards might be like the best backup safety, or Brian Cook, whoever you want to say is the starter there, aside from Justin Reed. Like whoever is the 3rd safety there is the best backup safety in the NFL right now. Like they're just making plays across the board. And you're absolutely right with the Trent McDuffie trade. We're talking 4D level chess here. Like, okay, Tyreek Hill, you want to demand a trade? You told your agent, okay, just get me a new contract. I don't actually want to be traded. And then he got you traded. First of all, get a new agent. I'm sorry, Drew Rosenhaus. You failed your client. If he didn't want to get traded and you got him traded, you failed your client right there, Drew Rosenhaus. Secondly, okay, we take the draft pick that we got from Tyreek Hill and we use him to guard Tyreek Hill. I mean, we're talking about that State Farm insurance commercial where they're like, bundle home and auto, and they're like, that's 3 words, and they're like, not if you bundle it, and the guy gets like all shook out. Like, that's the level of thinking that the Chiefs had right there, using Trent McDuffie to shut down Tyreek Hill when they got Trent McDuffie when they traded Tyreek Hill.
So you mentioned the Chris Jones penalty, and we got to bring it up and we got to talk about it because like, I don't think, you were talking about Chris Jones just kind of disappearing recently. And I agree with you. Like, he is commanding more blocks, and more offensive linemen are trying to stop him than anybody else on the offensive line. So I think like George Karlaftis, Mike Dana, Charles Omenihu, like all these other guys, we saw Tershawn Wharton make a couple of big plays today. Like, I think all these other guys who are contributing along the defensive line are a product of Chris Jones getting so much attention. But yes, he's one of those guys who's looking for $25+ million a year, or like $30 million a year to be paid like he is one of the absolute best players in the NFL at his position. And I still believe that to be the case, but you need him to make some big plays in key moments of the game. And today it was just the opposite of that. Has just an unreal boneheaded penalty where he knocks Austin Jackson down after the play is over and gets called for the penalty on 3rd and down, or on 3rd and 20. And next play, easy Raheem Mostert touchdown. Like that's the kind of play that if the Chiefs lost this game, we would have pointed back to that. And that's what would have been talked about like ad nauseum this week. Like, oh, Chris Jones, boneheaded play leads to a Kansas City Chiefs loss. And this is a guy that's won Super Bowls. This is a guy that has performed in the biggest moments on the NFL stage, and he just simply has to know better. Like, it was just one of the most frustrating things I've ever seen on a football field, because he should know better and absolutely cannot make that kind of play, cannot get that frustrated. I understand he wants to get sacks, he wants to hit these incentives, he wants to make plays, but it wasn't happening on Sunday morning. And you just simply cannot have that. And that's something that this goes back years now with the Kansas City Chiefs. They shoot themselves in the foot. Travis Kelce's done stuff like this before in the past. Like, I don't know if it's a coaching thing. I don't know if it's a discipline thing. They always get called for lots of penalties. It's always an issue. They always look disorganized sometimes. And I was just really, really frustrated with that. So I just had to get it off my chest. Chris Jones absolutely cannot do that.
100% you can't do that. That was like the people who are old enough who are listening to this that remember the Denver Broncos game where Derek Thomas got that really horrible face mask penalty after the play, where he grabbed the guy's face mask and shook it after the play on the ground and got a 15-yard penalty because he was so frustrated because he was neutralized all game. That's exactly what this looked like. And you can't do that. Like, you're the guy who's supposed to be making plays. You said he's won Super Bowls. He's a leader. He's all of those things. Last year in the Super Bowl, when we thought when he was on the sideline, there's that video of him telling the defenders, sit down, conserve your legs. We're going to have to go back on the field in this game and get a stop. Like, that was leadership right there. Like, you've seen that out of Chris Jones in the past. And yeah, sure, you're frustrated in this game, but this is the biggest game of the season. Like, you dropped one to Denver last week, and that's one thing because you have a pretty big lead in your division. But beating the Miami Dolphins may be the difference between getting the number 1 seed in the AFC or not. Like, this is a bigger game than losing a division game to the Denver Broncos.
Yeah.
And in that moment, you got to keep your head about you. You got to understand the situation. And for you to go out there and get a 15-yard penalty that keeps the drive alive, that then results in a touchdown. They were already in field goal range, so it wasn't a 7-point swing. That's a 4-point swing. If the Chiefs lose by anything less than 4 points in that game, you can point 100% to that penalty and say Chris Jones is the reason why we lost that game. Now, luckily, the defense played lights out the rest of the way down, shut down Miami's offense after that. Tua Tagovailoa fumbles the ball. Brian Cook comes up with another big play. Game over. Everything's forgiven. But in that moment, Chris Jones, you are the leader on the defense. Like, look, who is more of a leader on the defense right now, especially with Nick Bolton being out? Like you're the guy that everybody's looking to, and everybody's going to follow your energy, right? And so in that moment, you got to be the guy that's setting the tone.
It's this defense is week 9 of the NFL season, heading into a week 10 bye ahead of what I think has a chance to be the best game of the entire NFL season, a Monday Night Football matchup against the Philadelphia Eagles. I'm a little worried about that matchup, but the way this defense is playing, like it makes me feel better. But this is a defense that still, Rocky, through 9 weeks of the NFL regular season, has not given up more than 20 offensive points in a single game. Like, and they just did it against the most explosive offense in the NFL, and it's not even close. They only gave up 14 points to the Miami Dolphins. Like, that's how good this defense is playing, and it's just a remarkable job. Even though there were still some boneheaded plays, there were still some issues that could have cost them a win here. But I totally agree with you. This game matters so much more to playoff seeding and the Chiefs trying to get a first round bye than that game to the Denver Broncos. Denver Broncos are not a playoff team. That's a division game. No. The Chiefs are going to easily win this division, and it's not going to be close. So that game does not matter in the grand scheme of things. This game was really, really important.
Well, yeah, and the Chiefs came into this game holding teams to the second least amount of yards per pass attempt. I don't have it right in front of me, but I believe it was around 6.5 yards per pass attempt, and it was number 2 in the league. The Chiefs held Tua Tagovailoa to 5.7 yards per pass attempt. We're talking about an offense that has Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, 2 of the most explosive wide receivers in the NFL who are known for big chunk plays. And the Chiefs just came out today and they said, listen, we'll give you some stuff underneath, but you're not going to get those big plays on us. You're not going to get a 70-yard touchdown against us. Like, you're going to get 5 yards, and then we're going to rally to the ball every single time. Okay, take your 5 yards. We'll rally to the ball. We're okay with that loss, but you're not going to get any chunk plays against us. And with the exception of the Cedric Wilson touchdown and maybe 1 or 2 other like 15-yard gains, the Chiefs really, really were like sold out to like limiting chunk plays today, and they did great. I mean, honest to God, like, there's better defenders in the NFL than some of the guys who are on the Chiefs roster, but find me a team that plays better as a unit. I can't find one.
They're just unbelievable right now, and they get a well-deserved rest as the Chiefs head into their bye. Again, it's 7-2, still atop the AFC, still one of the absolute best teams in all of the NFL. But we unfortunately have to talk about the offense, and we can keep this a little bit quicker. We just went 22 minutes, basically all defense, and that's the kind of post-game show I'm talking about, Rocky. But offensively, and we'll get into all of the inner workings a little bit here, but where I want to start is what I think is just the absolute most frustrating play of the game. And this even includes the Chris Jones penalty. This made me more upset than any single play in the entire game. 3rd and 1, late in the 4th quarter, Chiefs looking to just keep the drive alive, to keep Miami, who has all the momentum at this point, from getting back on the field and potentially driving down the field and tying this football game up. 3rd and 1 after Isaiah Pacheco, who, doesn't have a monster game, but was running really hard, was picking up tough yards today. And Miami's run defense has actually been pretty good. Most teams don't run on them very often because they score so many points. But when teams have tried to run on them, they've been pretty good this season. But 3rd and 1, short yardage situation. Again, the Chiefs overcomplicate things and make it difficult on themselves for whatever reason. I don't know why we see this every single week, Rocky. I don't know why it seems like every single week they go out of their way to make it more difficult than it needs to be. 3rd and 1, Isaiah Pacheco's running his ass off all game and just looking tough and hard to bring down the entire contest. Jerick McKinnon's in the game for some reason. They send McCole Hardman in motion. It's a bogus play anyways. And then the Chiefs don't even run the football. They set up a pass play to Kelce. It looked like a Kelce screen, and he's blanketed by 3 different Dolphins because they're like, we know you want to go to Travis Kelce if you're going to throw the ball on 3rd and 1. And Mahomes just has to throw the football away. They don't get it. They have to punt it back to Miami, and you put your defense in another situation where the defense has to save the day. And it's incredibly frustrating. Like, they easily could have quarterback sneak that and just picked up the first down and kept the drive alive. But instead, they take Isaiah Pacheco off the field, put Jerick McKinnon in, don't even give him the ball, don't even try to run it or quarterback sneak it or do anything. They throw the football and it's another design short yardage play that fails. Like, I just don't understand what they need to address over the bye, because this is something that's going back several years now, and it's incredibly frustrating. It's always been the Achilles heel of this offense, and I just don't understand the thought process and the logic from the Chiefs offensive coaching staff on that play call.
I mean, Andy Reid, so often, it's like, oh, everybody else playing checkers, and he's playing chess. Sometimes you just play checkers. Or sometimes when you're playing chess, the best move is just to move the pawn for one space. You don't want to do something crazy with your queen or a bishop flank or a trap or anything like that. Like, just line up and move your pawn forward one space. Like, that's hand the ball off to Isaiah Pacheco and get 1 yard. Like, line up behind your offensive lineman and do the brotherly shove. Like, what is the strength of Chiefs offensive line? It's not the tackles, it's the center and 2 guards. You really want to go to the strength of the offensive line? Go behind Creed Humphrey and Trey Smith and you from behind. Like, it's not rocket science. And the Chiefs are insistent on Andy Reid is a Hall of Fame head coach. He's one of the best play callers in history. And 9 times out of 10, I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. But if I would say one thing about him, is that he's almost too smart for his own good in simple situations. In complex situations, he's going to outsmart every single person. But he overthinks the simple things sometimes. Sometimes all you need is 1 yard. Sometimes all you got to do is line up behind your big, fat, ugly guys and just move the piece forward 1 yard. Like, you don't got to do anything special. You don't have to trick anybody. You just have to go out there and smack somebody in the mouth and get 1 yard. And I mean, as much as we talked about the Chiefs having a good plan for Tyreek Hill, Dolphins had an awesome plan for Travis Kelce. Travis Kelce was 100% ineffective in this game. He had 3 receptions for 14 yards. I mean, that makes his 58 yards that everybody was pissed off about last week look like the game of the year. Like, he was just 100% a non-factor in this game. The Chiefs' leading wide receiver was Noah Gray with 34 yards. Patrick Mahomes finished the game with 185 yards passing. Like, are you joking me? Are you joking me? That's not good enough.
So, and credit to the Dolphins defense, because they did shut down Travis Kelce today, and that was clearly their plan, which it sounds simple. Like, just make sure there's like 2-3 guys on Kelce all the time, but we see teams fail to do that constantly in the NFL. And so credit to them. I mean, Miami's defense is talented, and Jalen Phillips, who's a really talented pass rusher, has been injured for a lot of the season. He's healthy now. Xavier Howard's missed multiple games this season. I know he's not like the lockdown corner he had shown to be in years past, but he's still a talented player. They just got Jalen Ramsey back. Like, that Miami Dolphins defense, I think, is more talented than it probably gets credit for, because the offense is so good. So credit to them. But I was really hoping that, before the bye week, and I mentioned it this week as well, and I think we talked about it, on last week's Rapid Reaction show. Like, I wanted to see the Chiefs kind of come out with this like game plan that they had like last year against the 49ers, because that was just before the bye. You could tell Andy Reid just dusted off the absolute gold standard playbook for that game, because it was a huge matchup against a really good team, like a Super Bowl caliber team. And to start the game, it looked like it was going to be that kind of day for the Chiefs offense. Like, it looked like they were finally going to get things going. Mahomes absolutely carved up that Dolphins secondary on the opening drive, and that led to Rashee Rice touchdown, where again, the Chiefs rookie looks really impressive, just catching the ball in space and just looking powerful and explosive. I think we've got the Rashee Rice touchdown if you want to pull that up, Kramer. And they start things off just looking smooth. And I think it was like one of the smoothest drives of the season. It felt like, where Mahomes is hitting guys are getting open. They're just moving down the field and making everything look easy. And then kind of from that point on, it didn't look smooth. It looked out of sorts. It looked like guys were struggling to get open again. The Chiefs' pass protection was struggling at times today, and Mahomes was hanging on to the ball for too long. Now, they did get it together. Rashee Rice also has another impressive catch where it's a really tough catch to pick up a first down, keep the drive alive, and that extends what eventually turns into a 13-play, 95-yard scoring drive that takes 8.5 minutes off the clock. And that's the game plan against the Dolphins. Keep the offense off the field, move it down the field, slow, methodically. Like, that's what this offense is now. That's what we have to expect from them. They just have to execute that, and they have to pull that off and look good doing it. And there was two key moments. Those two touchdown drives were the only drives that they really looked like that this entire game. The rest of it was the same thing that we've seen all season. So offensively, it's still a huge work in progress. Coming out of this game, I don't feel any differently than I felt about the Chiefs the entirety of the season. Like, they're still 7-2. They're still an elite football team. They're still a Super Bowl contender, but they got to really figure some things out over the bye week. And I think Andy Reid desperately needs this bye week. We talk about all the adjustments and everything that he installs over the bye week. Rashee Rice needs to be the adjustment. Like, Rashee Rice needs to be the game plan over the bye week. How do we get Rashee Rice heavily involved in the offense to make him the bona fide number 2 option? Because nobody else is getting it done but the rookie.
100%. Nobody else is getting it done except for the rookie. And the rookie wasn't even close to being the Chiefs' leading receiver today. Like, that's the problem. He had 17 yards receiving on 2 targets. And he caught both those targets, and one of them was a touchdown. But I mean, Noah Gray's your leading receiver with 3 catches for 34 yards. Like, that tells you everything you need to know about this offense heading into the bye week. And yeah, like, it's just one of those things where MVS is just not getting it done. Justin Watson, like, they just don't get the separation that they need.
It's
and
Watson and MVS are both like solid number 5 options in your offense, not number 2 or number 3 options.
And they're not contested catch guys, either one of them. And you see them, like, Mahomes throw up these contested catch balls, and they're incomplete every single time. And, like, yeah, of course they're incomplete. Like, why should we do the exact same thing and expect a different result? And you talk about the Chiefs, like, protection. Donovan Smith had a really, really bad day today. And one thing we're not talking about is that Donovan Smith has had a couple of really bad days this season, and he needs a lot of help on pass rushes on his side, especially if there's a blitz coming. He's not as fast as he used to be. I mean, the Chiefs need a left tackle. He's getting by right now, but I mean, you line him up against a legit stud pass rusher, and he's going to have trouble. I mean, yeah, there were some players on the Dolphins defense that showed out today, like Zach Seiler probably had his best game all year. Like, you don't expect Zach Seiler to be the guy that comes out and kind of wrecks the offensive line a little bit, but he did. You know, Bradley Chubb had a pass defense and a QB hit. You know, he had a good game too. But I see that all more as an aspect of a weakness on our offensive line. You know, Jawan Taylor's getting better. He's doing okay. He's getting better. The middle of the offense is fine. But that Donovan Smith left tackle, it's like the Chiefs just need to figure out the left tackle. They just can't seem to get a guy on the left tackle that can kind of hold his own for an entire season. It always seems like it's a position in flux, and they have to figure that out, because until they figure that out, Mahomes isn't going to feel comfortable enough. And then we don't have the wide receivers to get it open either. Then Mahomes doesn't have time even to extend the play half the time. And so I don't know, man. This offense is concerning going into the second half. I agree 100%. Rashee Rice needs to be the focus aside from Kelce. They need to find ways to spring Kelce more, because teams are just saying, hey, we're going to put 3 players on Travis Kelce, and you're not going to do anything else. Like, nobody else is going to get open.
Yeah.
And so we're going to put 3 guys on Travis Kelce and then trust that one guy can cover 2 guys of your offense. Like, it's laughable at this point to some degree.
And, you know, and I understand that Rashee Rice is still a work in progress. Like, he's not a guy that's got a full route tree in his arsenal. Yeah. And that's something you hope he can develop in the offseason, but it's kind of hard for a rookie to really work on developing that, and for you to be able to deploy it as if it's going to make a significant difference in the NFL regular season. But the bye week should just be, yeah, but he looks incredible after the catch. So how do we just get him the ball? Like, let's just get him the ball and get him in space, because that dude is hard to tackle and he's got a lot more bursts than you think. Like when he gets the ball and takes off and just moves upfield, like he is a load to bring down, and he's a lot faster than the defense realizes. And he's proved that over and over again so far this season. So they've got a lot of things to work on offensively. And I agree with you about Donovan Smith. I think I said in the offseason, like, I had a lot of faith in the Chiefs offensive line staff, and bringing in a veteran like that who had played at a pretty high level in Tampa for a long time. And he's kind of been a letdown. Like he's been okay, but like you mentioned, like he's really struggled at times this season, and he just looks like he's slow, and he just looks like he's old, and he's not quite the same guy that he was when he was younger. And that's fine. That's what happens when you sign a veteran offensive tackle on a 1-year deal who it seemed like wasn't really sought after in free agency or anything like that. So that's what happens. It was a short-term fix at the position. It's still something that they have to address here in the future, but they've also got a lot of other decisions to make about contracts and payroll this offseason. So that's something interesting. That's something that we'll continue to talk about and discuss as the season moves along and as we get in the offseason and all that stuff. But all that matters right now is the Chiefs are 7-2, and they're headed into a bye, still atop the AFC, still looking like they are one of the absolute best teams in the NFL, despite the things that they are still struggling with. I hope they get it figured out over the bye week. We still got a lot of football left to play, but they pick up a huge win over a very talented Miami Dolphins team. And instead of, I hope this week, instead of, oh, the Chiefs offense is terrible, they can't win a Super Bowl with this group anymore, hopefully a lot of the national coverage is a lot more about the Miami Dolphins can't beat good teams, because that's what we should be talking about. Chiefs win. They're still great.
Or the Chiefs defense shuts down elite offenses.
Yes, or that should be a conversation we should absolutely be having as well. Kramer, do we have any comments before we get out of here? I know we got a long day of football to get to. We've all been up very early this morning. We shut down the Dolphins in the first half, but they shut us out in the second half. We weren't in as desperate of a position, but every after our first seemed to be a challenge. Yeah, I mean, it's exactly how the offense has looked all season. Aside from, I think, that game against the Chargers and that game against the Bears, which we now know the Chargers have one of the absolute worst defenses in the NFL. So I don't think you should really take that much away from that performance. It's been a struggle, and they week after week, they continue to make it look difficult. And I feel bad for Patrick Mahomes, because I don't think it's all on him, but some of it's also on him this season. Like, Mahomes isn't playing his best football right now. And I think Mahomes makes it pretty clear week after week that he does not trust these guys. And that's why he's not willing to take chances. And then when he does get frustrated and take chances, they've generally been bad decisions that wind up being turnovers. So it's a work in progress. And all you can hope for is that it just becomes a little bit more functional as the season moves along.
Yeah, anytime the quarterback takes a strip sack, it's on the quarterback, honestly. Like, I don't care if it's bad protection or not. You got to protect the ball as the quarterback and hold on to it. And it's back-to-back weeks that Mahomes is taking a strip sack. So that's not great. But that also being said is that this almost feels a little bit like, I remember when the Baltimore Ravens won their first Super Bowl with Brian Billick as their coach, and Trent Dilfer was their quarterback. I remember Shannon Sharp saying in the interview before the game that he picked his team to win the Super Bowl because they were the best defense in the universe. He's an offensive player, and he had no faith in his offense to score points in the Super Bowl, but he knew that the defense was going to bail him out, because that's what had happened that entire season. And that's what happened in that Super Bowl when they won. Now, obviously, the Chiefs offense isn't quite to that Trent Dilfer offense level where they were scoring, I think, 6 points in the playoffs or something insane like that. But moving forward the rest of this year, it may very well be the defense to carry this team. Like, this very well may be Patrick Mahomes' worst season from a statistical standpoint, and as a professional, just because of the lack of weapons that he has at his disposal. And we need to be prepared for that. That doesn't mean that he's any worse as a quarterback. It's just that you see him after every single play, he's telling guys, come back, cut across the middle, do this, do that. He just doesn't have faith in him, and he doesn't have the weapons to throw to. He can throw the ball, he can make the decisions, but if the throw's not there, what's he going to do?
Yeah, we knew this season was going to be difficult at times offensively. We just hoped that we were going to see some of these young pass catchers take big strides. And outside of the rookie, nobody really has. That's sometimes how it goes in the NFL. I still think they can figure it out to some extent. But I think this is the Chiefs' offense. This is their team this season, but they're still good enough that they can get you where you want to go if things fall the right way. From Nikita. One, this defense is truly legit. Two, hallelujah, Tyreek didn't score. Three, that second half was atrocious. Yeah, I mean, I think we've already talked about all of that stuff, but I will mention again, like the job that they did on Tyreek Hill today was just absolutely tremendous. Incredible game plan from Steve Spagnuolo, and L'Jarius Sneed just continues to be one of the best corners in the NFL that doesn't get enough credit. Trent McDuffie continues to prove that he is a legitimate elite playmaker for the Chiefs secondary in year number 2. And that's what we should really focus on coming out of this game is just how incredible the Chiefs defense was and how incredible the playmakers are on the back end of that defense.
100%. The playmakers on the back end of the defense. And I mean, especially the linebackers, on that second level, especially being banged up. Like Willie Gay wasn't 100%. Drew Tranquil isn't 100%, right? Nick Bolton's out. The linebackers really stepped up in this game. And then we've talked already about a lot about L'Jarius Sneed and Trent McDuffie, but Jalen Watson as well. Brian Cook. God, Brian Cook had a really good game. Huge heads up play. Mike Edwards with that pitch to Brian Cook. I mean, this defense is 100% legit. Nikita, you got like 3 of my 5 things we learned from this game in my article. It's going to be on Arrowhead Pride tomorrow, listed right here in this comment. I agree 100%. I don't have faith we're going to see too much more out of the offense this year, but I mean, this defense is legit. Like we can bank on the defense to at least keep us in games.
Yeah, they're incredible. Last one before we get out of here. Which is worse, Hardman inside the 10-yard line or Andy's play calling on 3rd and 1? So the McCall Hardman punt, which he catches on the 1-yard line, gets it up to about the 10 at a pretty critical moment of the game for the Chiefs, is frustrating and annoying. But again, that's kind of the McCall Hardman experience. And also last week, I know he had the fumble, but if you listen to Dave Toub's press conferences, as I do each and every week, the week prior, McCall let one go. And then Dave Toub got mad that he didn't go after the football and try to make a play, because Dave Toub's like, I want to make plays on special teams too. And that's what you're out there for. And so I think McCall Hardman is kind of in his own head a little bit about situationally, like when to do it, when not to do it, when to let it go and all that stuff. And that's something they just got to get figured out. I know he came back over from the Jets and he wasn't playing for the Jets. Like he was a healthy and active for the Jets multiple times before he came back over to the Kansas City Chiefs. So that's something they got to get figured out. But I think at the end of the day, you're just going to live and die with McCall Hardman making some bad plays, because occasionally he's going to rip off an explosive return. The 3rd and 1 call, easily much more frustrating play for me than the McCall Hardman punt catch on the 1-yard line.
100%. 3rd and 1. I mean, here's the deal. Andy Reid is the head of the team, and Andy Reid's refusal to just simplify it on 3rd and 1 is like, it's like a symptomatic, like root issue of the disease of the offense. McCall Hardman came back to the team after being like, he was outcast away from the team, wasn't being utilized, brought back to the team on the day that they put Dante Hall into the Chiefs Hall of Fame as a kick returner. And then he has a 50-yard return, and he's like, okay, my value is as a return man. Plus, my coach said I should have returned these kicks that I didn't return. Then I fumble one and I screw up. So now my next time out there, I got to have a chance to try to do as much as possible with the ball. And it caused him to make a bad decision. Like that's the timeline right
I
there.
think
Okay, I can understand that.
I think that's coaching, and I think that's McCole Hardman just kind of being in his own head about it,
That's
and
yeah.
and using poor judgment on when he needs to try to make a play and when he needs to just let that thing go. Because
It's
he's out
McCole
there,
Hardman wanting to be
well,
a contributor.
and he's just on this 1-year deal with the Chiefs after coming back to Kansas City, so he's just trying to show anything to keep his NFL career moving. So I think you got to live and die with some of that stuff, but hopefully that's another thing they talk about over the bye week and try to get figured out from a special teams perspective. Because I think that's the biggest thing with this team, especially on offense and special teams, is we know that defense is elite, but they got to stop shooting themselves in the foot. They got to stop having mistakes. They got to stop turning the football over. And if they can get that cleaned up, like, it'll be fine. I think that's the biggest issue that they're facing right now is that they turn the football over every week, Rocky. like they just got to get that stuff figured out. And hopefully they do some of that over the bye. But he's Rocky Magaña. You can follow him on Twitter at Rocky Magaña. I'm Steven Serda, where you can find me. You can follow Kramer at Kramer Talks. Make sure you're locked in all week long. I know it's the Chiefs bye week, but we'll have plenty of coverage for you at arrowheadpride.com. As always, please make sure you leave a rating and review for everything that we're doing right here on the Arrowhead Pride Podcast Network. Me and Pete Sweeney will be back tomorrow morning with the fresh edition of the Arrowhead Pride Report, and stay locked into the Arrowhead Pride Podcast Network all throughout the Chiefs Week 10 bye. We'll talk to you guys then.